That's funny. You were in the start, and I mean, when we were getting out, we were closing our fob.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
were involved with the like drawdown process.
Right.
But definitely, like my platoon did not have to figure out how to make accommodations and all that stuff.
Right.
We were where brigade was, so
Right.
there was
So it's
like
established.
pretty established.
Yeah.
But another one of our platoons was at a fob that where they had to rebuild guardhouses
Right.
and
Yeah.
build stuff to
Yeah.
like make their living conditions better.
I mean, we were just like, yeah, you gotta maybe Haji down the street here will give us some. We can buy some food from them.
Yeah.
You know? Because
Rather than MREs.
we have like been eating MREs, haven't pooped in a freaking
Right.
6 months.
Everything's bound up.
Yeah. Um.
No, it's definitely a great life experience though.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would go do it again, but at the time, yeah, I think
Especially now.
yeah, especially now, yeah, the military's changed. But yeah, I mean, I forged some good friendships.
For sure.
There's like 3 or 4 of us that have like still stayed together, and it's been we don't really hang out, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, hey, is everybody is
Still good?
everybody okay?
Right.
Because unfortunately, I think for me, it's easy to say I kind of came out well. I think it really pushed me, and the experience was. But the guys that were next to me too, like, didn't do as well.
Right.
So that makes sometimes where I sit back and I'm like, maybe what we went through was pretty challenging, because these guys really are not having a good time anymore.
Right.
So it's interesting. So we do try to check up on it, and then some of them are just like,
It's key.
yeah.
Everyone kind of, I mean, every person. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Sometimes like when we would do stuff like this and we'd like have great conversation and then start the recording, it's like, oh, all that's lost, but it's cool to like chop it.
Yeah. What we like to do is just kind of because when they do the 5, 4, 3, 2, and you're just like, then everybody's like,
Tense.
yeah, you get tensed up. So we just like we hit record.
Mint. You can always do an intro.
Yeah,
and clip
exactly.
it in.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was, it just kind of goes to show that like, as humans, we're all so different.
Mm-hmm.
So like the way that we were brought up, the way that we were raised, the life experiences that we have, all kind of shape us into the person that we are, and that affects how you are able to react to things, how you process stuff that happens to you, and what you make of it going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's like so evident in people in the military, but also coming out of the military, where it's can be so hard to deal with life because maybe you've spent 20 years doing this one thing for the government in a very structured environment, and then you get out of that and it's like, oh yay, retired, but what do I do now and how do I live? And this was my life, and it can really play a negative effect on people.
Yeah, I just had a few months ago, one of my buddies, he did his full like 30 years, and he was very successful. I mean, I think he got up to E9 or whatever. And that was his life.
Right.
And then it was just like we had a big party and all this stuff, and he was just like sitting there, and you could tell. He's like, what do I do?
Right.
I'm like, I'm in my 40s. I've got another career, but I don't, I can't even start to think like how to, yeah. So but I think that's a really good, what you say is it makes you who you are, and to look back and say, I wish I didn't do that. Then you would almost wish you weren't, you weren't what you developed to be. So I think it's a good,
well, it's so tough for people in any walk of life, like unless you're really thinking, like that's what I love about business and what I love about personal development and growth and stuff is like you have all these ways of thinking that I didn't know until I started out and like started searching, like how do you effectively set a goal? How do you effectively like plan your life out? If you want to get here, how do you do that? And most people don't think that way. They think of today, like what am I doing today? And maybe I got a vacation or something that I'm looking forward to, but if you're like most people and you're in that boat, then life just happens to you.
Yeah.
So 20 years down the line, you don't really have any other options or any thought process outside of what you're doing, because you've just been living in it and it's been happening to you, instead of you making a plan and trying to develop something like a path that you're going to go down.
Yeah. And I think being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, I think is it kind of forces you, because I mean, you guys, you have a crew, and you're sitting there and saying, okay, I have to keep these guys busy, so I have to think about what I need to do to then, create more efficiencies, make sure that the business is making money, so there's money left over, so we can, buy a new truck, or we can buy new gear, and, project. And you're absolutely right. You're the one that's leading. You're the leader, and you need to be thinking about how am I going to get these guys to A to B, because they want to go. They want to take the journey with you, and they want to work at a good place. So you have to, create those goals. Then, the personal development of being able to then handle the stress of it too.
For sure.
And be able to shoulder that, walk into the office and be like, everything's fine when it's not fine.
Yeah.
And to start that.
It's a long, I mean, you have to have an open mind to learning always. Like, there's not any, what is it, 10,000 hours, you become a master or something. Right. Well, life, there's no way to master. Like, there's always something new to learn, and you might master or try to master one piece of it, but then there's another piece, and then there's another level, and then there's always further to go, so it's, I mean, that goal setting and all of that stuff kind of has come naturally to me, and I think that's why the entrepreneurship road was appealing. But it's been very helpful for many different parts of my life, not just for business. And but it is, what you said is so true. You have to think that way. You have to think of the future to be able to effectively manage the present. And that's definitely, I mean, we're going to be 10 years in next year. And that's something that you're constantly looking at the future and learning from the past, and how do you, what's the best move to move forward?
I like to say, you're trying to make 51% of your decisions good, and you're going to stay in business, at least in the beginning. But so I think that's a good segue. You've been 10 years. How did you kind of get started? And Zach from Z&N Construction. Construction. You guys are probably the one company that, when somebody's like, I'm going to go get it, I need another quote, I'm like, call Zach, because you guys really do good stuff. And I know that, we're more of a competitor in a good way, because we're saying, hey, listen, this is what it really should cost, and this is how it's going to be done, in the right way. And your uncle Larry that did drywall in 1973 is not giving you the right information. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
We run into that. So how did you get started? Obviously, there was a military component in that.
Yeah.
You got out of the military, I would imagine, then kind of same as me, was just like, what do I do?
Kind of. So I always had a knack for working with my hands. I was into like cars and stuff when I was in high school, and came from nothing. My parents love them to death. They're amazing people, but not, I mean, we lived a stable life, but not like a lot of frills. Yeah. And so that kind of gave me a desire to make something of myself and to make a better life for myself than what I had or seen. But I didn't really have a plan when I was younger, like of what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to go into the military. I had like it's so funny how life happens, and we can go on so many tangents, and I'll try to keep it like pretty direct. But 9/11, I'm 34, so 9/11 I was 11 years old, and it really kind of struck a nerve with me, like it did with a lot of Americans. And I think that was really where my sense of, I'd always like had a interest in like war, like I read a lot of books about it and stuff when I was a kid. And but that was really kind of what drove me to want to serve and want to go do something. And quite honestly, my views on everything have changed almost 180
Yeah.
degrees since then. But that's really what pushed me to want to join. And I had a bunch of different paths that I thought I was going to go down,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up landing on the guard, and started working in construction right when I joined the guard. And the guard, that's cool. What's cool about the guard, it's part time.
Yeah.
So um,
Until it's full time.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Until
Yeah.
you get deployed or get
Yeah.
orders or something. But when I started in carpentry, I was very interested in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
building stuff is really cool, and it's it was something that I also had a knack for, and like wanted to grow and learn and ultimately make more money in.
Mm-hmm.
And when I worked for a company in Torrington for 5 or 6 years straight, and then got orders to go overseas to Afghanistan, and told them I wasn't going to come back when I came back, because there wasn't really like a lot of growth there. And that's something, all of this stuff kind of shaped like where I am now in my path there, because that is something that I think plagues the trades, is that there's many, many times people start businesses because there's nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no more upward growth in terms of benefits and pay and responsibility and all of these things. And that was where I was. I didn't, it was the owner, his brother, his son, and then a few of us guys who were working there. Learned a ton from them. Love those guys.
Yeah.
Great quality work. But the facts are what they are. If there's nowhere to grow, then what am I doing here? And so when I came, obviously a deployment affects you in many different ways too. So I was over there for 10 months, and it was about a year that I was away from home. And when I came back, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was trying to, I knew I wanted to get into like investing and very like personal growth driven mindset type of thing. But I didn't really know how I was going to do that or what I was going to do. And I ended up, I was working construction for a friend of mine. I worked at a fence company for a year, and saved all my money overseas, bought a 2-family in Bristol when I got back.
Love it.
So remodeled that at nights and weekends, and all the time, at the same time, I was going to school full time for a finance degree, because I was like nights and online classes and stuff. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wanted to pursue like a bunch of things that interested me, which I think is key for anyone younger that's listening to this, is like, you don't know what you want to do. Well, guess what? Everyone does know what they want to do. So go and try many different things and find something that sticks. But long story short, I got an offer to subcontract for a close friend of mine who were still good friends. And he was going to pay me $25 an hour. And I was like, wow, like that's a lot of money. That's more than I've ever made before, like $1,000 a week. That's awesome. And so I went to work for him, but he's a firefighter too. So he did construction part-time, and not part-time, full-time, but like it wasn't like his main bread and butter, So I was talking to him about like how far out are we booked and all this. And he's like, a couple weeks, it gets slow in the wintertime and stuff. And I was like, well, crap, like I got to figure out something, because I need to keep working. Like I newly married, just bought a house, like all this stuff. And so I started telling everyone that I knew about that I was doing construction, and just talking to like a ton of people everywhere I met, everywhere I went. And at the same time, like I said, I was going to school full time. So I was taking entrepreneurship and business courses as part of this finance degree. So I was like learning a lot about how subcontracting works, and like how you're really not an employee, you're your own business. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm my own business and I'm talking to all these people, I might as well just start a business and take my paycheck as part of that, and see where it goes from there. So that was in January of 2015 that I set up like our LLC and license and insurance and all that stuff. And I had not sold, but I had brought an addition to my friend Tim that we ended up doing, that I was still working on for a close friend of mine in West Hartford. And so I was working on that for 6 months. And then after, I was lining up work like at this time. So I was like telling people that I was doing it myself, and the business name and Z&N Construction is just my initials, try to find something simple. And after that edition was done in the summertime, I had booked out like 3 months worth of work for just
Nice.
one guy and a help, like and a helper, like it's easy to book out pretty far, especially when your numbers are cheap because you don't know anything.
Yeah.
And and then told Tim, after this edition, I'm done, and I'll call you if I don't have any work, and I'll work for you again. But so we're still like really close. He's one of my best friends, like really close. But that's kind of how we started.
Yeah.
And after that, like I said, that was summertime of 2015, and I started out on my own. And at that point, it's like, all right, well, once these jobs dry up, like, what's next? So like I was doing what every business owner does when they first start. I was doing all the work, I was selling all the jobs, I was estimating all the jobs. I'd spend time at 4 in the morning writing estimates, and then go to a job and spend time in the evening going and looking at jobs, and the whole cycle, the tradesman's or craftsman cycle.
The 90 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was trying to grow because I didn't want to have to be stuck in that for a long time. But I also didn't know how to grow. So there's a lot of like learning curve and stuff. I was reading as much as I could and listening to podcasts on the car rides to look at estimates and all this kind of thing. And I had 3 people at the time in like 2017. We've gotten into some like decently large stuff. No additions or anything, but like screen porches and kitchens and all this stuff, but it was all over the place. Like it was wherever you could find a job type of thing. And which also sucks because you're driving around a lot and all of that. And I also didn't know that but I didn't think I could afford to pay somebody what they were worth that was good. And I was really scared about that because I'm like, I'm going to pay somebody more than I make in a year to come on here. Like, what if things don't work out? It's like very scary. But in 2017, I was one of the guys that was working for me like part time had a friend of his who had been 20 years in the field and had a lot of experience. And his name's Ryan, and he's still on my team today. And he came on board and was able to kind of shoulder some of that job lead type of stuff that I was doing so that I could focus more on selling jobs and organizing things and all of that. And I also have another guy, Joe, who's very good, but he was a plumber before he came on, so different background, who had been on for a year before Ryan, but without having, we're a general contractor, so we do mostly building and remodeling type of projects. Without having a full building or remodeling background, like even though Joe has huge attention to detail and like knows everything about plumbing and HVAC, building stuff was not his strong suit, and he's like come a long way since then. So but both of those guys are still on my team today. And around that time was where we started to see a shift in being able to have time to work on the business and not just in the business, because you're always trying to work on the business, but when you're putting out fires left and right and you're trying to field all the calls and do all the things, there's just not a lot of mental space left over to like really make change.
I think that's probably the biggest jump for any entrepreneur, any person in a business, is to jump from you doing it all to then being able to delegate.
For sure.
And you're absolutely right. I think everybody's had that challenge of, I'm going to hire and I don't think the person that really would come work for me. You kind of feel like of an imposter in the beginning. Like I can't, put an ad on Indeed for like, and I don't, what about, they're probably going to want benefits and, and I got to pay them what? Like, I'm not even making that amount of money. And it's, so you end up, you get lucky with a couple people, but then you probably, I would imagine you've hired where it hasn't worked out too.
Hundreds of people we've
Yeah.
had.
Yeah. Same thing with us. I mean, there was when we did a large growth, which was probably the most challenging part of my life. It was way more challenging than the actual Iraq and the military. Yeah, we was just like a revolving door because you try to bring people in, they would say they could do stuff, and they couldn't do stuff. Come to find out, they couldn't do it.
Lots of smoke being blown.
Yeah, and it's so that jump, it takes so much courage to, because you almost have to release a little control too. If you're very controlling, and you have it, and your clients are super happy, you're doing really good work, but now you've added people that are maybe more, involved with the client, and then maybe they're doing more of the work, and then you show up and you're like, what did you just do? Like, pack your tools. We cannot. This is a disaster. And I think that's, there's a period of time where I think you kind of just have to hold on, and it sounds like you got through that.
Yeah. To be honest, that was not the most stressful time of my business history, but it was definitely stressful because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
I think a character trait that I've been blessed with is that I'm not so much of a controlling person. So So when you hear guys like Jocko Willing talk about like pushing out decision making to the lowest level possible, that's something that I hadn't even heard from him, but that I would already wanted to do, because it's like the first book I ever read about entrepreneurship was the E-Myth, and it's like how many hats can I take off of myself? Because when you first start, you're wearing every single hat. The marketing hat, the sales hat, the phone hat, the secretary hat, the admin hat, the payroll hat, the manager hat, the builder hat, the this, that, the whatever, all of them.
Right.
And it's very, very stressful in that you just feel like you don't have a way out. Like you're just stuck.
You're in the middle of the room and everybody's kicking you.
Right. But you have to get through it, because otherwise it's like, if I don't keep doing this, then I don't have money coming in. And at that point, you're, like I said, alluded to in the beginning, like you don't know how to price things. You don't know how to cover all those extra bills that come in the mail that you just weren't expecting.
And I think that's another huge jump when building a business is you start out, you're doing the work, you're making good money when you're in a small team. You have really good referrals because you're a little bit lower in the market in cost, and people love it. You're doing good work, it's cheap. But then when you start to build your team, I mean, a big thing in Connecticut is, workman's comp, all of this, the benefits. You have to then raise your prices substantially to be able to cover that. And then what happens is your referrals that kind of dry up a little bit because they're like,
you have to work for a different group of people.
Yeah, you did that deck for $12,000, and now you're charging me $40,000. And you're like, no, that's
Go get some other quotes.
Yeah. So that was a big change for us too, where the friends and the family stopped calling too, because they weren't in that demographic that could afford you anymore.
Right.
And that's like very, we've actually just recently elevated that up one more time, because we were just looking at it and saying, who are the most challenging clients? They're usually in this price point.
Mm-hmm.
That don't want plans, they don't want professional. They don't really care.
Just get it done for me.
Yeah, exactly. Can you, we just need something new. Instead of the people who are like, we want it new, super nice, and done right. Like the pricing isn't really that important to them.
Yeah.
So we've done that again, but then it's just like, okay, the phone's not ringing as much.
Right.
So it takes a bit of patience, I think, and kind of holding steady.
For sure.
I'm not taking that job. I can see you're not wanting to pay, and you might be a little crazy. So I don't want it.
The best move for people you don't want to work for: charge more.
Yeah.
And a long lead time.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, it's going to be $100,000, and we can't get to you until next year.
Yeah. And for some reason, they want you more when you say so.
Well,
You're
at
like,
least then you're getting paid.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
No, but
is.
that's so true though. It's like I honestly, that's something that we kind of went as a for our company kind of went through and went over, but I've never really like thought specifically about is that there are a whole bunch of people that I remember building quality relationships with and doing great work for and having a great experience that we were able to provide them that reach out again for another quote. And when your pricing changes,
Yeah.
maybe you're not able to work for them anymore. And it's like, it's sad, but at the same time, it's good because you're in business for your goals and aspirations and to be able to provide the level of service that you're planning and trying to provide, not to be able to service everybody.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like a lot of tradesmen don't understand is like it's okay that you're not the lowest bid. It's okay that you're not working for everyone and that everyone can't afford you. Because like you said about holding steady, you know, like we have for the last 4 or 5 years, I would say, have positioned ourselves as that top tier contractor. Like our pricing is not ever going to be the cheapest. It's not usually in the middle. It's usually on the high end. And it's insane that we're booked out 7 months.
Yeah.
Like that cycle is just so happens to be right now. Like I've never been booked out 7 months, like with 2 to 4 projects running at a time. Like that's a lot of volume, but it just kind of goes to show like there's been plenty of times where we've only been out a couple weeks and it's like, well, what are we going to do to find work we can work in the shop for a week, but after that, like when's the next job coming in? And it's like you said, holding steady in the storm.
You're like, maybe we'll say yes to this Karen, and you're like, no, don't do it because it.
Or guys go and like lower their prices. Yeah. Like one of my sales guys is like, I don't want to be way up here because I want to try and get the job.
Yeah,
we've done that in the past. Like one year we did that, and you know what sucks? You don't get those jobs until you're slammed.
Yeah.
And then you're slammed, and they're like, we're ready to go, and you're like, well. Like I gave you a 20% less price than I should be making, and now you want to do it when I'm swamped. Like it's just a very tough pickle to be in.
We got caught last year with that, where we had a pretty big sales team, which was, we were trying to get them to get going and go, be successful too, because they're feeding their family by their sales. But it's like a perfect storm where they were under pricing the jobs. We had a good structure, but it wasn't, really in depth of making sure we could get the job done for that price.
Right.
And then we have inflation hit at the same time, and we had booked a ton of projects that were undersold, and then inflation hit and then you have to have all the bookkeeping and real-time job costing wasn't really fixed. So I had all this work that was losing money.
Oh man.
And it was like that's what I was saying is the most stressful.
That's a stressful position
time, because
to be in.
it was just like, what do you do at this point? If you walk off, and at that time we had close to 58 active projects going, and I was not in control of any of it. Like we had, we've shrunk down to only we do between 12 and 15 projects now at once, because it's doable. But it was, I'm losing so much money every month, but it's like you can't, if I walk off from 25 projects, like
kind of kills your name.
It's gonna destroy everything that you do. So, that's probably ends up being 12 lawsuits. At that point, the state of Connecticut is probably going to question your license, but there was still, I had to rectify all that, turn the ship around, and, raise the prices at the same time as get rid of the people that weren't the right fit in the company.
Right.
And then at the same time is try to draw a line. I mean, I ended up having to, sit down with banks and say, I need X amount of dollars because I need to finish these projects.
Yeah.
So it took on a ton of debt but then I had to draw a line in the sand with the clients that would just,
yeah.
And then that, I think maybe that created them freaking out too. I've been
Right.
so we just this year I finally I feel like I've got it back on track.
Yeah.
But like
That's awesome.
Jeez, like that was quite the bumpy ride.
That was me in 2022.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would say that was kind of I was in the same. It was the same time frame because it's already been 2 years.
we've never really like we're our companies I think operate a little bit differently, like in terms of how they're organized. But going back a little bit when I was talking about figuring out where you want to go and what the business is going to do for you. It took me a few years to really kind of get a mission statement or core values or like a why do we do what we do type of thing. But I can't remember the exact year it was, but basically what I realized is the reason why I started in business is I wanted to provide a more excellent experience than the people that I had worked for before, because there's plenty of things to learn working for other people in what they do great and what they don't. And I also wanted to create a place that I would have wanted to work. Like what I talked about with there not being upward growth and not being money. Really, it all comes down to like resources, like money to go around to be able to take care of people and live not only just an average or healthy life, but like to excel in your life.
It's so funny how aligned we are. I did the GI Bill, got my business management, bought 2 families, wanted to looked at it and said, what are my skill sets? I'd like to had the exactly same experience with the company that I started out with.
Yeah.
That was just like, it was kind of a shit show. It was I spent 10 years with them. And it was, you could tell like most clients weren't really happy with the experience. I mean, they did decent work. They still,
we got our project done.
Yeah.
But we're glad it's done.
Yeah. But I wanted to like, and our tagline, we don't really push it as much now because it's too long, but reinventing the remodeling experience. And genuinely, I think a good genuinely wanted to change the industry.
Yeah.
As like, hey, I'm younger. I'm, there's technology out there that we can use. There's, there's such a long period of time where the trades were, just culturally your last resort.
Yeah.
Like if you were a bad kid, you would go to like a trade school, because you couldn't hack it at the.
I wish I had gone to a trade school.
Yeah. Well,
in high school, such a leg up.
Right. And it's, we've had quite a few guests here that we've talked about, like the trades are really good. Like if I were to do it again, I would be an electrician or a plumber because they're just like lights out. It's just crazy. They're charging whatever they want and they don't do it. I don't even think they do anything anymore. It's so I love it. So you were kind of came in the same way, like, hey, I want to change. I want to change and elevate this.
Wanted to change the contracting industry for the better and to be a positive impact in the lives of everyone that I came in contact with.
Yeah.
It's part of our mission statement, but it's, I don't know. Like I said, you learn a lot about experiences about what not to do. Yeah. And, I really just wanted to create a place that was like an example of like, this is what can be done. Right. And we're not, I mean, there's always things left to improve and there's always things that can be done better. And we're still learning as we go, but we've hit a point where it's very, very smooth. And like, there's lots of people who want to use us because they've heard nothing but great things about the team and that sort of thing.
And you've done, because obviously I follow you on social. You've got a good group of guys that want to be on video. That's one. So I know that they enjoy working.
Yeah.
And
they don't want to be on video.
Yeah. No, but you know what I'm saying. They're willing to tolerate it.
A couple of them, but not most of them.
Yeah. But I think that says a lot as leadership in that way, and that they enjoy And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so many people that recommend you guys. And, so kudos and very good job in building a
Thank
company
you.
because I don't think people realize you've gotten up over the hump that period of time, where you were able to build the team,
Yeah.
delegate, and then continue also doing all of that and also keeping the quality and keeping the clients happy.
Hardest part.
So hard.
I'm sure we have many similar stories. It's just this industry. There's so many. It's one thing, I don't know about you. When I was trying to like learn about growth and about business and all this kind of thing, it was right around the Grant Cardone Instagram era where he first started
10X
coming
it all,
out, and he's like posting videos all the time and like just ads, and like I'm like, who is this guy? And then I start seeing him, I'm like, oh, he's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then like time goes on, I'm like, oh, he's just all about the money, like whatever, dude. But I was in the same thought process because I'm like, I have a business, like I want to 10x this business, I want to grow it and all this stuff. And but in construction, especially in remodeling, there's so many things that you have to have a handle on that it's very, very hard to scale. Like there's not a lot of unless you really, there's a couple parts of the business, like roofing or windows or some of these like CT Home Pros, like bath fitters type of places. But unless you're doing that one thing over and over and over again, and you can just charge high rates for it, and you've built your name and you can crank them out. When you're doing custom remodels, it's all variable. Like there's variables every which way. So how do you scale that? There's no way to like really that I've seen. I mean, there probably is a way. There's got to be a way.
Listen, you should have come and told me that a couple of years ago when I could try to scale it, because you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think, when you're as a business owner, you also have to be in an optimism
for sure
mindset. But it has to be within, you have to. But I think, your journey's always the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't think I don't regret it. It was definitely a challenge. I still want to bring more once we've redeveloped to scale a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah. How did you guys, like, what was your thought process in scaling? Because excuse me, 2022 like was one of the worst years of my life, and I can tell that story of like our attempt to scale bigger and stuff. But I'm honestly curious, like, how did it go for you?
I thought we had developed enough systems. I'm kind of a system person.
For sure.
Like, I'm like, how can I create a sales system? And I built each department into, okay, if I can create a sales system that has check boxes so that we've broken each project down into linear feet, square feet, and components of each thing. And we were using Co-Construct at the time, which is a project management software. If I can then send out a good salesperson that can take, and then we would have like all of these, worksheets. Okay, they want this. Okay, what's the year of the house? The year of the house would dictate we need a new electrical circuit or a new home run if it's in a, for a kitchen. And they would build that all out and then bring that back to the office. It would get reviewed, and then the proposal would get sent out.
Yeah.
And then if we could then have a project manager take that, there would be a handoff. And then from there, go out and produce the job by trying to send out and pre-buy out the project. So get quotes.
Gotcha. Ahead of time.
I thought that I could hire industry. So I was looking at it as like just the management side of that was missing in the building and remodeling. Like I'm like, I can find like that carpenter that just you can't use technology. He's not keeping track of anything, doesn't know how to price things. And then I can plug them in and we can just scale it. So you'd say, okay, like one salesperson, if they could sell $1 million, then they would make a decent salary. And then I would do a project manager and pair them together.
Yep.
And then it would be a component. And then, we would just go and we would
And they'd have a list of subs to call
Exactly.
the project manager so that they
Exactly.
could build the job out through
Right.
subs.
Exactly.
Nice.
So
What was the pitfalls?
the pitfalls were exactly what you said. There's so many nuances that you don't realize when you walk in that you're seeing. And I couldn't get the, not that I couldn't. I mean, I think I was not hiring for a lot of, well, put it this way. The guys that had 25 years experience, that was who we really needed,
Right.
couldn't get onto the technology. They couldn't figure it out. They wanted to use everything, and the whole system didn't work because I couldn't, and the management team couldn't oversee a salesperson that was using a legal pad. Right? It had to be in co-construct. It had to be so that we could visibly.
So everyone can review everything.
Everybody can review everything. So what would happen is like they would take the photos, they would go out, they'd do the worksheets, but they would miss stuff. So then it would go to the project manager. Then the project manager would be like, "Well, I can't get this done for that." But we've already gotten the
They're
deposit.
missing X, Y, and Z parts of the project.
Exactly. So that ended up just being, and then we did a lot, commission based because it was just like
that's typical for a sales team.
Yeah, and I don't really. So what would happen is like if they, how when you walk in to a job to sell a project, you admit confidence.
Yeah.
Like you just, what the hell's going on. You're like,
right.
Did this shit 1,000 times. Like,
right.
You can't do this. You can do this. We can move this. We're going to do this. They never had that. So the people would feel they would be competing. We would have folders and presentations and do Zoom calls. But we would be competing against an old guy in a truck that would show up and be like, yeah, no problem. We'll take care of it.
Right.
Versus them being like, well, I don't know. And the client would feel that.
Yeah.
So the sales the conversions on the sales were dismal.
Right.
And then they would get desperate, which is completely, it's human.
Yeah, they're
nature.
upset. They're not making any money.
Yeah. I gotta feed my family. So let me really push.
Right.
Let me try to get this sold or I'm leaving.
Right.
So then you have the turnover. And then on the flip side, it was the project managers, the same thing. They didn't have enough experience in it. So they ended up, kind of missing stuff and not being able to keep on track. And then there's a certain way you need to talk to subcontractors in the way of like, you need to know what you're doing.
Right.
Because they'll just be like, oh, well,
I'll just pull this wool right over your eyes and we'll make it happen.
Yeah. and then even, electricians and plumbers, I mean, they still need to be like, hey, here's the full layout of the bathroom or the kitchen.
Yeah, they need to know what to do.
Yeah, and you need to, sometimes you need to, Sharpie, put the toilet here. You have to do all that stuff. And if they weren't doing that. So.
It's so tough. The experience piece is what's key to all of it.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the hardest things for me in terms of every salesperson that I've brought into the office has all been somebody who has worked in the field with me. Yeah. And not all of them have worked out for being a salesperson. But the reason for that is I can't see what you just said. There's so many bits and pieces that you need to know in every aspect, from the sales point to the build point. Right. They need to have that project fully thought out. Otherwise there's going to be issues during the production phase, and there's, I can't see a way around. Right now I do a lot of the sales and Joe does a lot of the sales and that's it. Yeah. Because I can't see a way around. Anyone can go and talk to. Some people are really good at talking to people. They can go talk to people, but if they don't know all the back end of how to construct the thing that they're trying to sell, how can you get an accurate price on that? Right. Because there's so many variables, and even I do know how to build it, and there's things that you just can't see. We're doing a bathroom right now where they wanted pocket doors in. It's a huge house in Avon. They want pocket doors for entry to the Jack and Jill bathroom. Okay, no problem. Take the sheetrock out, cut some studs out, put pocket door frames in, put the doors in. We take sheetrock out.
Plumbing stack.
Not plumbing. the way that the roof system was framed,
Yeah.
there is microlam coming this way, microlam coming this way, quad set of jacks right in the way of where the thing's going to be.
So even worse.
They're
Something
even
that you
can't
can't
move
Yeah,
like
yeah.
without reconstructing the top half of the house. So it's like, could I have seen that? Like I went up in the attic. The attic's all like roughly finished. So like there's no way to really see exactly where load points are and stuff. But that's just something that is missed, and like there's no way around it, you know? And somebody who doesn't have that level of experience, like who knows what they're going to put together.
And I think that too, and I think you're probably more real with the client, and we've kind of moved to more of the experts need to be in the sales process from the very beginning, because that was the other thing. Everybody thought they were going to have a good time. You know, so the salespeople were out there, and even the project manager, we had these handoff and these meetings, and okay, this is what you need to expect, and everybody was optimistic. I mean, we were really pushing out the positive vibes in the office, and everybody's like, yeah, the kitchen's going to be beautiful. And then when it went wrong, like it destroyed the trust. And the minute you lose trust with the client is the minute you're trying to you know, play cleanup. You can't get them back. So now they start to nitpick everything because you've lost the trust, because you had set the expectations that were way too high.
Right.
So now we're sitting down, and it's me or Tony that is talking to the client. And if we're doing a kitchen or a full house remodel, and those people are going to be in the home, we'll be like, listen, you're in for a not a good time.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know, once you climb the mountain, the view is going to be nice. It's going to be nice at the end. But don't think that it's not going to be a crazy climb, because it's a disaster. You're trying to wash your dishes in your tub, like, because you have no kitchen, you know, or you know, if you make a little kitchen in the basement or something, like it's still, and if you have
not
kids,
ideal.
It's not ideal.
Right.
So
that's huge. Managing expectations.
So huge. So now I'm like, I don't think you should do it unless you're mentally prepared. You know, and I think in some ways we start to get more jobs. I just got off the phone with somebody yesterday, and they're like, and I was just like, listen, you work from home and you have 2 kids that are at home.
Right.
And you want us to redo your whole downstairs. And I'm like, no, you have to move out. You have to get an Airbnb for at least a month.
Right.
Because you're gonna
hate me.
You're gonna absolutely hate everybody.
Right.
And oh my God, thank you so much. You're the first person that was like a straight shooter with me.
Dude, people appreciate realness so much.
Yeah.
Like there's so many. Nobody likes the salesy salesman, you know? Like there's so many people out there that will just shoot the breeze and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And then I had a guy on my team that was selling like that, and was a close friend of mine before. And like you blow smoke up people.
Right.
You do that enough times, like there's only problems come from that. And it's so, I feel like it's like, that person was probably like it's such a breath of fresh air.
Right.
Like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the thing is that if you manage expectations, most people are reasonable.
Right.
And most people will be like, yeah, I get it. Like we just did a really nice bathroom just for the perfect client in Burlington. I can't say more. When you align with good people.
Was that the one with the crazy glass surround?
Yeah.
With like all the framework in it?
Oh no, that was one in Simsbury. That was
sick.
Yeah, that came out cool. This one was equally as nice. We just finished it up, but the client was just so understanding. She had picked an $800 faucet. And I guess they actually hand make this stuff from Kohler. I don't know.
Wow.
But they wanted, and it was like delayed. And we put in a, a similar one. No, we put a similar one so she could use it. But just the expectations were like, hey, you're really choosing something that we don't know when we're going to get it.
Right.
And our team now is so much better at that. And she was like completely fine. Like, hey, I get it.
Right.
But when you paint the picture and you don't really tell them that, they're like, we're setting up a factory in your home, and there's human beings that are like literally using their hands to like do things, and they have to walk through your home and carry heavy objects and cut things and make dust, and like it's a factory.
Yeah. There's no way to do it perfect.
Yeah.
You just do it as best as possible.
And every piece of wood is slightly different dimensions. And you know, your saw, the blade is you know, not as sharp as it used to. And like it's just there's so many variables. So how you know how we fix this, and what I found is moving forward is no more free estimates. And this is why this is why, you know, when everybody was like, you're bringing in Zach, and I'm like, yeah, because I have the feeling that, you know, I want to get, you know, one of my best friends is Scott from S&S Remodeling. He's up in your area too. You probably, you know, he's on Facebook. And then, you know, I went to school with Mitchell Restoration.
Yeah.
Mitchell, you know,
I've heard of both of those guys. I don't know them closely.
Yeah. And I'm like, guys, like, we need to elevate this industry, and we need to set the expectations of how it needs to be done. And this free bullshit estimate is garbage, because you walk in and people are like, well, what's the kitchen going to cost? It can cost you $50 or $150. What do you know, I can put, you know, I can get some stock cabinets from Home Depot, and I'll, you know. So, you know, this kind of this new process is like, listen, if you want to, I'm going to come in. I think we should have an interior design. I really like working with interior designers. We started using that, and it's just, it you know, it really helps people paint the vision and do the colors and all of that stuff. But buy our time, and I'm going to consult you. Right. And you say, I have $100,000 to spend. Okay. Well, let's look at what are your priorities, because first of all, 100 grand's not enough. Right. But if that's all you really want to spend, then let's try to design around that. Right. Not the other way around. So what we do is we'll do a free phone consultation. I'll just talk budgets, and it's me now. I'm right up in the front. Hey, it sounds like, you know, pull up the address, look at it. Okay. You know, you're in a 4,000 square foot house. Those average kitchens they start at 120. Right. Like, oh my God.
We don't think it should cost that much.
I thought it was going to be 20,000. Well, you know, we wish you the best of luck. We wish you well.
Yeah.
You know,
good luck with that. And when you go get some other quotes and information and come back to me, then we can talk.
Right. So what we do is we get them in a design retainer, and then say, listen, okay, we're going to come up with some plans. We're going to talk about finishes. We're going to give you the proposal based off of what your budget is. So this is what we can do for that budget, and spell it out. It's going to be, you know, if you're in this price range, it's going to be a nice Fabuwood cabinet. Right. It's going to be a granite countertop, tier 1.
Do you guys design, like when you do a kitchen? Do you guys do the kitchen rendering, the layout, all of that in house? Yeah. Interesting.
And sometimes we have some you know, if we don't have an interior designer that's doing that part. Mm-hmm. But we also have some suppliers that will do it. But sometimes it's easier, because then we're having the project manager that's going to be on the project working closely. Right. So when we work with an interior designer, we're the front of them. So we go in and we say, this is what we can do. Right. And based off of the budget, because this is the biggest broken part. Don't
be putting different ideas and all this stuff in and ruin this deal.
Exactly. How many times have you gotten a set of plans from an architect? People have architectural plans, and the architect has had way too much time and too much fun. Yeah. because they've got, they're making, we're going to redo the front of the house, and we're going to bump this out, we're going to put new windows here, and then you go to price it and it's $1 million, and the client was like, and I'm like, well, why did you design $1 million renovation? Why didn't you design something for 500 for what the client had?
I've had 2 of those where it's so funny you say no more free estimates. There's a lot of things that I can learn from you guys, because your process is different from us, and I'm sure that it's mutual, because in 2018 I was listening to Tom Reber a lot, the Contractor Fight, tons of podcasts out there. Back then, now he's a little bit more commercialized, and I don't really listen to him anymore, but the first couple hundred podcasts were gold, like so many gold nuggets in there.
Yeah.
And one of those was stop going out on free estimates.
Yeah.
And I was going on like 20 to 40 estimates a week.
Yeah.
Like, they're not estimates, they're consultations.
Right.
I was going on 20 to 40 consultations a week at that point, burning hours and hours and hours, and then basically getting information, taking pictures, and I wouldn't sit down and write the estimate for a couple of days until I had time. Right. So I'm going through my notes, going through the pictures and stuff. And it was in 2018 in the fall, I think October or something. And I remember having a conversation with my wife, and I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. Right. Like, I'm not going out without because one of Tom's big things is like, never go anywhere without collecting a check. Like, I'm not going anywhere without collecting a check. And it took a while to like figure out how to do that, but basically we started telling everyone to send us all the information online. Like, we funnel all of our stuff. We do things a little bit differently. We funnel all of the 7 or 8 or 10 different ways people can contact you into one email address, inbox. Yep. Once they're in the inbox, then myself or Joe can pull them at our leisure to respond to them, which is usually within a couple days, but as long as we keep on top of it. But by doing that, we have the client send us all the pictures, all the information, a description of what they want to do, all their contact information right there, and we can sit there and look at those pictures. Say they send wrong, like ones that don't work out. Mr. Smith, can you please send a picture where you're stepped back a little farther so we can see the whole aspect of the room and see what we got to do? And then the alternative is like, we can come out to your house, but we charge for these. It's called a consultation, where I'll come and provide my professional experience and advice with you on what you can do with this project and how much it's going to cost. But it's a paid service, and it's usually somewhere between $200 and $500 or something like that. Comes off of your project if you move forward with us. But to be honest, I'd rather not even do those, because it's like, it's so much easier and faster to just like look at these leads and send out numbers like within a matter of a couple minutes. And do we have a high closing rate? No, but we have a closing rate that gets us the best projects that we want to work on for solid pricing in our area. Like, that's something that the last couple of years, like, we're based in Canton, and part of like my goal was really developing like a household name in the Farmington Valley. And the last 2 years, there's been only like, I can count them on both hands, like the amount of projects that have been outside of the valley. Whereas before, like I was saying, when you're first starting out, like, you're taking work wherever you can. So all of our guys are like our shops right in Canton, it's like our home base, and all of our guys are pretty close to that area. So it really kind of cuts down on like the drive time, which for having a team of trades guys like is key, like, how can I make your life as best as I possibly can make it? Like, that's one of the ways.
I think your team being able to, I think your experience, the client experience, is probably, different, but in a better way than, we had all in house, and we moved to more subcontractor, because at the time their team was too big. I couldn't control it. And you need to have, I didn't have any core people that could train to get the B players up a little bit, or the C players at least to B. But I think, to go back to the free estimates, I think that what people don't understand is that the industry doesn't have, it's the most, It just doesn't have any standards, right?
None.
So when you think about going, say, get a car, to buy a car, it's very easy. You can't, if you're not in the market, if you have 30,000, you don't go to the Mercedes dealership, right? You go to you go to the used car dealership, or you go and buy a Kia or something,
Right.
everybody has a different budget, but you don't go waste the time of the Mercedes dealership. You just and I think that's where we've started to just try to put pricing on our website. We try to talk about what it should cost, and that's why as the industry, if we need to elevate the industry in general, so that and even tying back into being able to afford to give your guys benefits.
Right.
Time. I mean, that was one of the biggest things, is I wasn't incorporating, like, these guys need a couple weeks off, vacation. You have to have training time. You have to have you have to now have some sort of an HR. You have
Right.
to do all this stuff, and it's not necessarily, their work output. You have to
Right.
think about their work output is maybe 60% of their cost. And it's the other ancillary. They just went to Home Depot 3 times, But so to elevate that, to say, okay, listen, we're charging enough to be able to put them in a truck, give them a good living wage, good benefits, so that it can be a career.
Right.
So that you can grow the company, so your top guys can move up, maybe have bigger crews, and have this, and elevate the industry. And I think it's actually way easier in New York and Massachusetts, because their licensing is way higher. Like, you have to go take a test. You have to be, I think New York, it's like you get a license only to do certain size projects.
Right.
And then it's like, it continues up.
Yeah.
And here it's just like
The Wild West.
Wild West. And people are wondering why, there's so much problems in the industry, and people are on Facebook being like, like,
So many complainers.
yes, so many complainers. I don't know. We were probably on there at one point too.
Yep.
Somebody just ranting and raving.
It's I definitely want to talk more offline about growing raising the bar, because I have some ideas about that I've had for years and haven't moved on. But is there like, what else would you like to go over on this?
Yeah. I think developing the industry, developing the right, the price point. I like it's been I like that you were kind of on the phone, because we do the same thing. Like, here's the standard pricing, and I think I banged up against you a couple weeks ago on an addition. And you had given a price.
I'm sure
Scott had given a price, and I was a third one in. Scott had handed it off to me. It was like, this client I don't have time for.
Where was it?
It was out. I think it was in Hartford, and they were just like, I was just like we got 3 quotes. We're just trying to get another one, and I was just
in Hartford.
I think it was right outside of Hartford. It was in,
like, right next to West Hartford.
Yeah,
line?
I think so.
Huh. That's odd.
They were just like, yeah, he came in at like 600 a square. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Like, that's what it should be based off of the plans. They had plans. I'm like, we start at 500. So, and I'm not even looking at this. So probably your finishes are probably at 600.
To be honest, we're not additions in that, like, larger you were saying you guys like those larger projects. We are kind of like, we'll do them if people are willing to pay.
Right.
And they're going to get an awesome experience by doing that.
Yeah.
But it's not really something that we want to do, because I don't know about you. I mean, we just finished an addition in West Hartford. Mm-hmm. It was our first one since 2020.
Yeah.
So in 2018 to 2020, we did probably 5.
Yeah.
Haven't done one since. But I have quoted so many additions.
Yeah.
And every time it's like, well, we got it, a lot of times it is price. Like, well, we got somebody who will do it for this.
Right.
And it usually is somebody who's like one guy and a couple guys who are just looking to fill their schedule, and they like building and they like this stuff, and they can do it for cheaper. And I'm like, as a professional company, like there is no way that I can put the management time on top of the subs that we use, on top of the time that our in-house crew is in there doing all the finish work, and make any kind of profit on this that I want to. Like, for all the stress of a few months long project, like why are we gonna go and do that?
My response to them is most of the time when we actually really look at, because we look at the data, they never end up actually doing it.
Yeah.
Because the guy that said, "Oh, I'll do it for 200,000," and you were at 4, he never answers the phone afterwards, and he actually does. And
nothing's lined up.
Yeah. And when some people will come back at you and be like pissed off, how dare you? And I'm like, listen,
for sending that number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, no. You don't how dare me until you finish the project and there wasn't $100,000 change order halfway through the project that equaled my price.
Right.
Then you can come in and mother F me all you want that you got the same exact product for half price.
Right.
Good for you, you won. But don't do it until you've actually got the project done, because there's so many guys that are out there that go in.
Low number.
Yeah.
Bunch of changes.
Forgot
this, forgot that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, this and that. And next thing you know, it's $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 more at the end. And I never want to do that.
Right.
And for the simple reason is that what happens if the client doesn't have the money?
Right.
Then what do? Then you have to walk off the job. And nobody's having a good time with change orders. So that's where we say, listen, pay us for the estimate. We're gonna send it over to the lumber, the lumbering company and get takeoffs on all that stuff. We're actually gonna, we typically do a $2,500 retainer where we're just gonna we'll do some small plans, and then we're gonna bring the electrician and the plumber out there.
So you can really get the full gist of the job together.
Right. We're gonna say
full plan.
Exactly. These the types of windows you want? Okay. We're actually going to quote the window.
Right.
Because, you have a bigger project and you got, 10 or 15 windows, and they want a Marvin window that it's $3-4 grand a window.
Right.
It's $40-50 grand in window package.
There's it comes back to there being so many variables, and it's for us, like with that whole online estimating process I was describing, like typically for somebody who wants an addition, we'll have, and we're still, this is one piece of our business that we're trying to like make better, but because we have really, the end of 2022, we had like a very big like company revamp type of thing internally, and we really decided that what we're best at is finished carpentry, finished remodels. So what is that? Kitchens, bathrooms, basements, interior renovation work. And so we've really tried to focus all of our marketing and all of the jobs that we really want on kitchens and baths mostly. Yeah. And for additions, if people reach out and they say, we'll ask them, what do you want to do? So common. Build a master suite over the garage.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone wants to do that.
It's $500,000. What? I didn't even spend that on my house.
Right. Well, we wouldn't probably put it up that far for those, but it's usually I'll tell them like it could be anywhere from 180 to 300K usually for a typical one. If you're having a huge one, then sure.
Right.
Or a ton of finished details or whatever. But another common thing is like, build a bonus room off the back that incorporates renovating the kitchen and first floor bath or something like that. Yeah. And usually we'll try to give them like a rough range like that. That's a big range.
Right.
But like if they're thinking it's 150, then right out the gate, it's not gonna work, Yeah. And then after that, like we don't really do the in-house like design and all of that type of thing. So we'll ask them if they have an architect, and then we'll refer them to architects that we work with the pictures and information that we have, so that the architect isn't like, well, yeah, we're going to build the Taj Mahal over here, and good. Totally throw the numbers off.
Yeah, it is good. And it's, you're absolutely right. There's so many people out there that are like, I'm staying at my home. How can I get more space? And they just think, oh, I bought the house for 300,000 last
And now you want
2 years.
you want to charge me 300,000 for this
Yeah,
renovation?
they're all pissed off at you. Yeah, I agree. We don't close a lot of additions. As many if you look at the closing ratio, I would say you're right. You're absolutely right. The kitchens and the bathrooms are probably that higher end.
Yeah.
Is really the best client, because you can really perform a really good, if there's the service side of it, but it can be beautiful,
Right.
and it's not a long time too.
Right.
If you can do it in 2 months, like it's start to finish, the client's not fatigued. And they're willing to spend that extra money,
because it's something that they're going to use every day.
Yeah.
Like the heart of the home, you know?
Yeah.
That's something that we've really tried to do, as well as, like I said, the two pieces of why we do what we do: delivering an excellent experience and making a place that I would have wanted to work, or that anyone would want to work at. But for that excellent experience, like, one big thought in our mind, like, it's kind of common, like, commonplace now, you know, like it just happens because we've been doing it for a while. But how can we shrink the project to to the shortest possible time that you're without your kitchen or your bathroom or whatever? Because while our guys are like, we have a team of 7, they're all very personable and all of that. While a lot of times people will say that, like, they miss us when it's done, still, it's like, you have random people coming to your house every day for 3, 5, 6 weeks or whatever it is, for whatever kind of project. It's a disruption, you know? So proper pre-planning, scheduling out the job, scheduling out the subs, making sure that what we estimate for time is adequate, like with our team, like we're pre-reviewing the job, before they even start. All has been very, very helpful.
I say remodeling is probably the most intimate relationship that you will have. It's more intimate than your doctor. I mean, you go to your doctor, they poke you for 45 minutes.
Right.
You're going to hire somebody based off a bottom line number. And these people are going to be in your house, petting your dog. Your kids are going to be there, and they're going to be there for 6, 7 months and bigger projects.
Right.
And you're just thinking about, oh, this guy was $5,000 cheaper.
Right.
Like, what? Like, people are so, it's such an intimate, because you're dealing with so many, like, in the home, but so many decisions, and then there's problems. Like, you're dating, you're in a relationship,
right,
for this period of time, and it's going to be stressful. And if you're both not, like, you're not, like, I say this all the time, we're all both going to go on a journey. We need to be, like, really good friends, because there's going to be a point where if we're not really good friends and you're just, like, looking at me as, like, some person that's going to get something done for you, like, it's going to get too stressful, and then it's going to be there's going to be friction. We need to have a good strength in the beginning, so it can wane halfway through,
right,
and then we can get it back on the rails. Because it's like,
because when those problems come, and they're going to come, maybe not on your project, maybe not on this, or not in this space, or whatever, but at some point there's going to be something that happens that's like a huge issue. And you're right. You do need that relationship to be able to shoot it straight to each other, and say, hey, like, this happened. Here's why. Here's the options that we can do to remedy that situation and fix it to move forward. How can we best serve what your needs are?
And most of that's tied to, here is the additional costs, and no one's having a good time. So where are we at, guys? Are we like an hour? Okay. Zach, awesome. I'm glad you came. I think at the very beginning you're like, what are we doing? And I just, like, I don't look as a competitor, more of a colleague.
Yeah, same here.
Listen, there's so much work out there. I'm always happy. I'd much rather, we're both bidding the same job, because then at least it elevates everybody. And
sure.
I'd much rather have somebody else out there and trying to get even more companies out there to say this, and this is the standard we need to start at.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna be I think honestly the old guys are retired. They're in their
They're
60s.
leaving the industry.
They're they don't answer their phone anymore. So I think it's gonna be just a few of us, and we're not enough.
Yeah.
Connecticut is. We just did stats the other day. It's like 90% of houses are like 30 years old. Like, it's just everything needs to be remodeled.
Right.
People don't remodel just because of the problem of doing it. Like, I think most of the people that don't remodel is because they look at it and they say it's too much. It's too much. Like, who am I going to call? I don't know what's going to happen. What is it going to cost? We're just going to leave it.
Yeah.
And we find if we can figure out industry wide, how can we get this to be a little bit less friction in the whole process, elevate it so we're not having people second guess us because somebody else came in that didn't know what they were doing and said stuff. I think everybody does. There's more happy clients. There's actually good jobs in construction, because there's companies that can afford it.
Yeah.
And everybody's having a good time.
I think that first off, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I'm sorry if I put that impression out, because I didn't really have any aversion to coming and doing a podcast with you. I really appreciate the offer and the invite. And it's not something that, I see. I say this all the time. I mean, we don't really know each other that well. Right. I think today was the first day I've ever met you in person.
I know.
It's
funny, but I knew we were the same.
There's a lot of contractors like that I know in Canton area I talk to, and it's not in business. It is competition. Yeah. You know, like, you may be bidding against another contractor for a job, but at the end of the day, that person is going to pick who best fits their needs. Exactly. So, like, whether they, I was talking to, I forget, the name's forgetting me, but whether they pick you or they pick me, if we're bidding against each other, it doesn't really matter. Like, that's good for you if you get the job, and that's good for me if I get the job. Yeah. Because guess what? There's 20 other jobs out there that are or people that are going to need our services. Right. And I don't think, maybe when you're first starting out, or if you're building a poor reputation for yourself, there's problems, and you need every job that you can get. Right. But for us and where we're at with our businesses, I really don't think that there's ever a spot where it's so light that there's nothing to do. Right. And if it is, then we can even call each other and say, "Hey, do you need any help on this?"
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Because there's a totally echo what you said. There's such a lack of standard in this industry, at least in this state, and probably all across, but also a lack of people. Yeah. Like, there's not enough quality tradesmen to go around.
There's stuff out there that is dying. You know, I saw this, and I know we need to wrap this up, but I know we could talk about this all day long. You know, the Victorian age, when we did all of, you know, when you look at Victorian homes. Yeah. Like, I don't know if we could even do that stuff again. Like the 9-part crown with, you know, what the problem is with it? And it's like,
we could do it. Right. But it would be so costly for people. And that's something that, like, is it just is what it is. Like, I don't know if people just had more time back then, or they didn't have as much of a busy life, or maybe less taxes or something, you know. But, like, all of that detailed artwork that's on these buildings can be done. It's just, how long does that take? Like, for a simple looking detail, like, takes days to complete.
And they didn't have half the tools we had.
Right.
But they were craftsmen back then. For sure. They really knew how to do it. So we hope, you know, more people need to get in the trades, you know, and not let the stuff die out. Yeah. Or we got to figure out how to robots. Robots are still a little ways out, though. I think let them drive our cars first.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting day.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thanks again for coming on, and we'll definitely have to have you come back.
Happy to. Thanks,
All right.
Dave.
Thanks.